Hello again, everyone, to my Howling at the Moon political rant. Today I want to talk about Terrence Bradley's testimony in the Fani Willis case. I watched the whole thing on CNN, and I have to say he did not come across very well. So we'll score one for the Trump team. Now, just by way of context, what they were trying to establish was that Fani Willis and Nathan Wade lied when they said they didn't have a romantic relationship before Wade was hired as the prosecutor on the Georgia Trump case. Okay. And originally, when Terrence Bradley testified, he said it was attorney-client privilege. And so the judge, who I believe was appointed by Trump, but he comes across as a very good judge, in my opinion, he said, well, let's explore that. So he explored that. He had a one-on-one meeting with Terrence Bradley, and he determined that anything regarding the timeline of their relationship between Willis and Wade was not covered by privilege. So anyway, that's the background. So Bradley gets on the stand, and they have a text message. The Trump team has a text message chain where the lawyer for one of the co-defendants basically says, hey, were you aware of any romantic relationship before he was hired? That would have been November 1st, 2021, I think. He was hired. Anyway, and in his text message, he says, absolutely. And then he goes into this whole history. And so the Trump team says, well, haha, why would you do that? And Terrence Bradley said he was just speculating. And then they asked him, well, why would you speculate knowing that we're going to use this? And he says, oh, I don't recall why I did. So he didn't come across too well there. I know how I would have answered that. I would have said, sure, no problem, absolutely they had a romantic relationship. And then I was just filling in the background. They first met, because that's what he said. He said, absolutely. It started at some some meeting or conference, right? But personally, I think what he meant was they met at that conference, and he was saying that they had a romantic relationship, but I don't think it was his intention to say that it started then. But that's not what he said. He said he was just speculating. Okay, so he didn't come across as credible. So I just have two things to say about that. The first one is, so what? So the Trump team has to prove that Fani Willis hired Nathan Wade so that she could get a financial benefit to an extent that Trump can't get a fair trial. So if, for example, there was a conspiracy and she said, look, I'll hire you because, we're lovers and I know you'll go along with me, and let's make up this whole case, and we'll make hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we'll just keep this case going on, and we'll be a team. That would be a reason to disqualify Fani Willis, okay? But the fact is, we know, and they would acknowledge as well, that she was investigating this case long before. She started investigating this when Trump was still president, and before she'd even met Nathan Wade by their own timeline. So even if they lied about their romantic relationship when it started, I don't think it reaches the burden of proof of disqualification. And let me just say, I do not believe the Trump team established that they were lying about that, because Fani and Nathan testified last time and explained that, yes, they met at this particular conference that Terrence Bradley talks about. But Fani said, I resent the implication that I would just jump in the bed with somebody on the first day that I met him. So, I don't think they've proven that they lied. And as far as any financial benefit, they haven't proven that either. They were in a relationship, and so they took trips together. And that wasn't on the public dime. Okay, so I don't think they've really proven much of anything except that this might make for a good soap opera. But the second thing I want to say is, yeah, I get it. The Trump supporters will, rightly say, hey, this guy, he doesn't recall. He's just lying through his teeth, and he doesn't want to admit it. And one of the Trump lawyers, I think it was Trump's actual lawyer, really nailed him on this. He was saying, look, you can just be honest. The only reason you don't recall is because you don't want to testify in court that they had a relationship beforehand. And I don't think Bradley came across too well in his answer to that, to be perfectly honest. Okay, so I personally think the judge is going to say, well, yeah, there's doubt as to whether they had a relationship before or after, because Willis and Wade were pretty credible, actually. There's some doubt there, but it doesn't really mean that she should be disqualified. That's how I think this judge would rule if he was reasonable. But for those Trump supporters who are jumping up and down and say, this is all a lie, I just want to remind you that if you actually bothered to look at Trump's fraud case, what you would discover is that Trump, Don Jr., Eric, and Ivanka all had amnesia of ridiculous proportions. In fact, I would say that their memory lapses were so bad that these people should be checked for Alzheimer's. I mean, they didn't remember a freaking thing when they were on the witness stand. Ivanka couldn't remember a bloody thing, even though, there were millions of dollars involved, even though she was in charge of negotiating some of these deals, and even though she had the frickin' email right in front of her face, suddenly she couldn't recall anything when the DA's team was asking her. But when Trump's team was asking her, suddenly she had, a lot better recall. So I just want to point out that for those of you who think that the justice system is rigged, if you actually bothered to look into this case more deeply, which most Trump supporters wouldn't do, because that would require them to actually look at evidence, they would find that Trump and his family and his advisors, if you think Bradley was bad, these guys, you can square that in terms of what they didn't recall. All right, so it works both ways. If you're gonna jump up and down and scream about this guy Terrence Bradley lying and not wanting to say, well, you should apply the same standard to the Trump family, because they were a lot worse. Okay, and in terms of it's easy for you, Mark, to say, because you're sitting here calmly. I would just want to say that I've been on the witness stand in a very emotional case a number of years ago. And what Terrence Bradley went through from the opposition lawyer was the Little Mermaid compared to what I went through. Okay? So if you think Terrence Bradley was being grilled, you can cube that. And that's what I went through. Okay? So, you definitely do have to have your wits about you in these cases. So we can chalk up a little bit of Terrence Bradley's ineptitude there, to that. But I think his lawyers really should take a good long look at themselves, because I know exactly how I would have answered that damning text trail, and it would have made all of this, a lot of this doubt go away. But he didn't do that. He said he was speculating, and then he said he couldn't remember. So, we'll score one for the Trump team today. But just remember, it works both ways. Okay? So Donald Trump suddenly can't remember a bloody thing when he's on the stand. You Trump supporters say, oh, that's fine. No, it's not fine. It works both ways. Okay? So that's my rant for today. That's my opinion. Everyone's entitled to one, and I'll see you next time.